Peace, greetings. We are live. It is 12:41. Welcome into a sovereign space. If you can hear me, please send a one, two, or three in chat, or just say I can hear you. But as you come on into the sovereign space, I just want to say thank you all for being in space. Thank you all for sharing. And, as we have conversation today, jump in and share some of your experiences. And I say that because today's topic really I think it hits close to home. And I say that because, so a couple things, right? One, I actually had a sovereign ask me in one of in one of our comment section below our videos, and that was in response to one of our live food demo videos. She asked about the use or the reason for using wooden versus plastic chopping boards. And today's conversation is exactly why. It's one of the reasons why I tend to use wooden versus plastic, right? And I recently saw another person with some tempered glass. And, I have to say, paying attention to how we um, use items and tools to process our food is really important. But when it comes to consuming food outside of our home, we really don't have control over that. And we don't have control over it because, to a certain degree, the food industry really relies very, very heavily on prepackaged items, relies very heavily on, plastic corrugated tubing and, plastic belts and, rubberized looking belts and silicone things and, even the packaging, even the packaging is lined with plastics. So it's really critical, especially for the sisters who join us in a space today. It's really critical to pay attention to that, zoom in on it, and try to kind of pull away from consuming foods from fast food chains and over processed foods. Highly processed foods is exposed to a lot of handling, but the handling is not necessarily by people who, they're using their hands, or they're using metal holders and so on for food. They're using plastic gloves. A lot of the times they're using plastic gloves. And so that was where this whole idea of today's conversation around a serving of industrial chemicals came from. It was in part due to the question that was asked about the plastic versus wooden chopping boards, but also I have been paying attention to industrial videos. Like, I noticed that I really like to pay attention to documentaries or things that document how something is made. I like to get into what the mechanics of a thing is, down to food. So it could be anything. I want to know. I want to know what's going on in there. So I have looked at a lot of very popular, they've become very popular now, videos that look at the industrial process of food packaging and making food. And I discovered from just the observations, when I have time to actually watch. But some of it is for sharing with you all. I noticed that every single thing that the food touches, except for big mixing bowls, everything the food touches is made of some sort of plastic. So in comes in the industrial chemical that I want to share with you today, called phthalates. So phthalates are toxins that are very much similar to would you like plasticizers? They are plasticizer. They make things soft and malleable and easy to use, right? Like silicone, right? Like silicone. Now, I'm not saying that there are some products that aren't okay and like BPA and FDA approved and so on, but it's really important to pay attention to the fact that we have all plastics right? That's used for packaging, processing, handling, wrapping, transporting of foods, whether cooked or raw. They're made from plastics that contain phthalates. And phthalates are, in a certain amount, they can begin to affect our endocrine system. It can begin to affect, I mean, they're literally disruptors, right? So I'm jumping in already because I'm just so hyped about this. But let me pause for a cause and greet everyone in the chat. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Thank you for joining. We jumped on just a little bit tardy, but we are here, and I thank you all for joining too. Greetings, Ima Precious on the 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Shamanique, Sister Kashia. All right. And Sister Naya. Give thanks, Chief Yuya, for joining us. I will, you are strong, and everyone's moving in purpose. Thank you all for being in the space. Thank you very much. So, and thank you all for remembering that we go live at 12:30. So, yeah, back to the idea of the industrial chemicals. So these chemicals that I really wanted us to zoom in on are called phthalates. And I know I have mentioned them before, but never really given them focus. I've never really given them the focus here. And the reason for doing that, as I said before, I was looking at a couple of industrial food videos, watching how, large companies actually process their products. And I noticed that there is an overabundance of plastic machinery, plastic packaging, plastic, you know, conveyor belts and so on. So very important to see, for us to see the chain of events in terms of residual phthalates and plastics transferring to our foods from being overexposed to these softer plastics that contain the chemical. And sometimes you think you rest something down on any surface and you don't, unless it's a dirty surface, we're not thinking about transfer of chemicals or germs, right? If it's a clean surface, we think, okay, it's clean, it's good. However, we overlook the fact that there are chemicals that are easily react with oils in food and transfer to our food without us knowing. Plastic chopping boards is one of them that I can think off the top of my head. And though that is entirely up to you and your home, it's really important to think about shifting the way we look at food, how we package food and store food at home. Because if we're moving away from eating foods from restaurants because of the overexposure to plastics, then you now have to think about how to regulate that at home. And I know sometimes it's hard. You have to lug around glass all the time, but let me tell you something about glass. Glass, you won't have a problem with that. Stainless steel, you won't have a problem with that. So just, those are some things to think about. So I also looked at a study. So there was a study that was recently done. This is not a new study. This is old because you all know we've been talking about microplastics for a long time, and how they disrupt productivity levels in women. And, it also, again, as I said, it disrupts the endocrine system, right? It literally begins to affect hormonal function in the body. All right. And it's not just the plastics, but also heavy metals do the same thing. They are disruptors to the hormonal function. So, just a word to the wise, a word to the rise. There's also effects such as so the plastics affect children in different ways. It actually affects their learning capability, right? And so I've worked with students with disabilities for a long time, and I can tell you, based on the way I see them eat, based on the way I see things prepared haphazardly, without any care, I can tell you that there's a large amount of responsibility on, the foods that they consume and the transfer of some of these chemicals. And the truth is the FDA actually regulates these things. However, this is the thing. When you have something that's a regulation, there's always a standard. There's a certain percentage or a certain amount of the chemicals that are allowed, right? And they won't shift or reduce the amount that's allowed until there's substantial evidence to actually prove that a certain amount of that chemical in the human body does affect or lead to some sort of fatal um, reaction, right? Or something that affects the body. So it's, again, really important to pay attention to, again, the foods that we consume, what types of plastics we engage with, when we put our food down on plastics. Pay attention to what types of plastics they are, to pay attention to how many acids you let sit in plastic containers. That's very critical, because acid, lime juice, lemon juice, those things that we consume or use to prep food, it breaks down plastic. All right, it does. It breaks down plastic. So the other point I wanted to bring up too was, the fact that, well, let me jump into the chat a little bit, because I do see some um, conversation. Sister Kashia says the chemicals in the processed foods and their wrappings can cause addiction to those products, rendering our minds and bodies sick. Sick. Yeah. Um, this is so true. It isn't just the chemicals that are in the conveyor belts and all of the other machinery and so on, surfaces that the food is in contact with. What is really important too to pay attention to is the chemicals that are used to process the foods. And in some cases, they are some of those additives are derivatives of some of the same ingredients or chemicals that are used in the creating of the machines and the belts and tubing and all of that. So it's extensive when you begin to think about how to remedy that, but it begins with individual decisions, right? It really does, because I know a lot of women who have been affected by microplastics, right? And what are called like pseudoestrogens, right? And microestrogens, things like that. They function as estrogens in the body, and what they do is they disrupt the hormonal balance, and it leads to reproductive issues. As something as simple as your contact with plastic. And there are other things too, is our contact with a lot of the cleaning chemicals that we utilize as well too as women. So it's really important, and anyone, but I really want to reiterate how it affects reproductivity for women, and learning disabilities and hormonal function. All right, and there may be something deeper there, because if it's disrupting hormonal function, then it means that we probably have a lot of people walking around with gender confusion due to other reasons beyond, I just want to be this way. I'm just being real, that's a reality. Because if we're really talking about how things affect us, then we can't ignore the fact that there are some chemical imbalances happening, and they manifest in certain ways. Chief Yuya says, eating from, I'm missing some of this. Eating from glass and steel, copper, or iron just seems right. I was taught in youth to eat from cast iron because my body would absorb the iron. Don't know if it's true, but where the mind goes, the body follows. This is true. This is true. I have heard so too. Cast iron has been utilized a lot, mainly because of those properties. Cast iron can be very expensive nowadays, right? Before, when it was like nobody business, nobody wanted cast iron because it was just too heavy, too clunky, ain't nobody care about cast iron. You could keep it. But now it is I guess it's trending because of the fact that it is such a heavy duty and very valuable um, piece of cookware. Copper and steel steel is very popular as well. Very, but you know what? Again, I think there was an age where Tupperware was the thing. I had an older family member. Now I don't know the last time I visited her. I have to visit her. I don't know the last time I visited her. Anytime I visit, it's always some stories. But she used to work in a school building, and she also sold Tupperware. She was a wheeler of Tupperware, I guess. um, and I didn't realize that was an actual thing, but like I looked back at the time frame, and it was actually a time period in the United States where Tupperware was a big thing. Plastic, not BPA free, free or whatever. Nope, nope, nope. Chief also says, Ooh, Chief also says the plastics are everywhere. Creams and lotions for the skin, the clothes and sponges you may use to wash your dishes. The body will reverse the effects from the plastics in 6 to 8 hours with no exposure. I did not know that, right? But hey, this is how absolutely powerful our body, the human body, the divine, listen, this body that we have here is made to have us survive. It's and not just not survive, sorry, thrive, right? Thrive. So the very idea, thank you, Chief, for introducing that. The very idea that if we reduce or remove our exposures to certain chemicals, the body begins to heal itself, right? Self-healing, that's a whole different story. If you want to know a little bit about my story and health, self-healing, and my little mantras and my little big meditations, I should say, I'm saying little, and how those supported me during a period of pain and so on in my life, please go check out some of my podcasts. I actually also wrote 2 blogs. Um, one called Sovereign Sisters, just to help other sisters who are looking for ways to, ways around some of our reproductive issues, and also to help support our reproductive organs. All right, and reverse some of that. But thank you. Precious Stephanie says, yes, striving to remove all plastics from our home is paramount. For the sake of safety, I thought plastic utensils, plates, cups were best for use, but as we learn better, we must do better. This is true. It's true. It's so convenient, right? I get it. I see it's so convenient. But it's very convenient, and it's very affordable too. Very affordable, because before, when those specific plastics came out that you could actually use, and you hear people talk about, oh well, I need to buy the plastic that I could put in the microwave. Now it's more like, why would you even put food in plastic, period? And I'm not saying I do not do it, because I am also moving away from that, but I tend to lug glass with me wherever, and I have to hear, don't bring that stuff here, because sometimes it's so heavy to deal with. But the truth is, it is the cleanest way to transfer, store, and store food, you know but yes, indeed, my precious, when we know better, we do better, and there are other options. When I used to vend for a while, and the first two times I did vend, I used plastics and plastic containers. And of course, I couldn't do it. I'm doing raw food. I have food sitting in plastic, and all I could think about was the way the food will begin to interact with the chemicals in the plastic. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. And of course, I couldn't serve in glass, right? But I did begin to buy glass bottles and use those to sell my juices. And people did not understand the cost price on it, because they didn't realize the value of receiving a drink in something as clean as glass, right? But when it came to serving the food, I actually you looked into paper products that were truly paper products and not bleached, and they use bamboo as a base, right? So even though they were one use and they were compostable, which is excellent, they did cost a couple, 25 cents more, and that does add up. However, it is the best way to actually ensure that you're reducing your food's exposure to some of these plastics and chemicals. And I want to also say too, sorry for pointing. I'm going to jump back into the chat. I also wanted to say too that there is a big trend now when it comes to packaging. You'll see a lot of brown paper wrapping, and don't be fooled. Do not be fooled by some of the brown paper bags with the sealed top, and don't be fooled because they all have a plastic coating on the inside where the food is being placed. So if we're really thinking about reducing, and I get it, I understand that there are regulations that identify if there are a certain small percentage of plastic exposure is accepted. That's understood, because I mean, let's really be realistic. Let's think about dried foods and the percentage of little insects and bugs that make their way into some of those foods, and we probably eat them unbeknownst to us, right? I'm not saying it's acceptable, but if you're constantly using plastic in everything, storing it in plastic, eating out of plastic, freezing it in plastic, then we do have to think about overexposure. By the time you get to 2020, which is, and 25, high areas of fertility, you have overexposed your hormones to dysfunction. Let's jump in here. Again, good old I'm missing a lot. I'm sorry. Who said ew? Somebody said ew, plastic. Sikashia said, right, plastic always been convenient and cheaper, but as we learn, convenience and cheaper has a high risk. Definitely need to place my cutting board. Replace it. Yes, yes, yes. She says, I love cast iron. I have more pots than I use. I've bought them from flea markets, army surplus, and some inherited. You can use them for weapons and such, plus food won't burn in them. Thank you very much for those helpful tips. We really appreciate them. We really do appreciate them. We understand. We understand your need for multifunctionality when it comes to cast iron pots, and we understand your need for non-burn food. That's crucial. Crucial. Flea markets, yeah, don't sleep on them. Flea markets are a good place because, as I said before, a lot of people are into convenience, and whatever the rest of the world is doing, you want to head in the opposite sorry, I had to do it. Yeah, you want to head in the opposite direction, right? And so that would mean whatever, if people are getting rid of things like perfectly clean, no, cast iron has a way of holding on to fat. So yeah, it might be pork fat in the bottom there. So make sure to clean it properly, because cast iron is a kind of thing, right? But a lot of people are getting rid of it. So army surplus stores, thank you, Chief, for those tips. Chief also says, you can't use plastic cutting boards. They're nice because they're easy to clean, but all that plastic is in your salads for sure. Plus, can't use them for weapons. Plastic, wood, or stone boards all day. Yes, wood and stone. Marble, it's very easy to purchase a marble slab, right? It doesn't even have to be a marble cutting board, because I know, yeah, you'll hear marble cutting board. You don't need, you can cut, just buy a slab and say it's your cutting board, right? Most people do that, and that's how they get you to buy all the stuff that they have made popular by saying, oh, you could do it this way. We don't think innovatively until someone comes up with it, and they're like, oh wow, there's a whole ad on the screen, and we're like, oh damn, I could do this too. Ima Precious says, I'm with you, Sister Kashia. I'm good with cutting boards, but have to trash what's left of the plastic items and swap to all wooden utensils. Yes, right. And wooden utensils are so easy. Chopsticks. Like who? And maybe some people will say we ain't trying to eat with no chopsticks, but they're fun. They're fun. They're a fun alternative. Um, they're a fun alternative. And wood is very. I think wood is very easy to clean. You just have to make sure that you sit them in a place where there's heat so they can dry out. Not heat them so they start splitting, but heat them so they dry out and they're warm and they don't sit in, just sit and soak up moisture and just dry over too long of a period of time. That can make you sick. Kashia says, good old cast iron. Women of my family taught me the importance of them and how to care for them properly. Yes, you got to season cast iron before you use it. There's a whole process. But listen, I'm seeing it right now. I'm seeing my grandmother with the huge, listen, these things they were huge and heavy. Woo, woo, big old cast iron on top of the wood fire in the middle of in the middle of the backyard, let's say. you know but yeah, it's always better. Only thing I use plastic Tupperware for is to hold screws and bolts in the garage. I never considered wooden, Ema. Yes, wooden is definitely an option. um I've seen the medicine woman in my family cleaning their cast iron with sand, and I was hooked. Right. Some people use salt and so on to what do you call it? Cure the pots and get them ready and prepared for cooking, right? So there's a whole process with them. And that's what I'm noticing with anything that is cleaner and better. There's always a process. Thank you all for these stories. Thank you all for these stories and the sharing, because the truth is, you know, we can identify what is wrong with the food industry and the chemicals, but we have to empower ourselves to shift and change within our own space. Because if we can do that, then we don't have to rely on anyone else, right? I mean, not completely, at least not until we start like harvesting our own food and we get into that space. We're not there yet, but we're going to get there, right? But that's what real sovereignty is. That's what real community building is. When you think about all of the different areas that you can become self-sustaining or collaborate and network with others, so that you feed them, they feed you, and it becomes bartering and elevates the business. That's the truth. Ema Pressure says, in truth, Sister Moksha, when using some foil paper the other day, I thought of you and wondered if I should find it an alternative. Considered metal plastics going into a food, metal particles, sorry, going into a food. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could sit a lemon wrapped up in foil in the fridge for a couple days. Just try it. And we use lemon and lime and other things that are acidic, that they're acidic outside of the body but not acidic inside the body, but they'll start to break down, and you probably don't pay attention to it because you don't see the breakdown as quickly when you're covering, you're just covering food. But if you were to cover a lemon, you'll see the breakdown, the deterioration will happen very quickly, very quickly. um so Sham Joy says, not the tang. Let's stick to some natural juices. Tang? Who is drinking tang? Oh my goodness, Tang Aid. Tang mixed with Kool-Aid, sat on that is high living. Okay. I don't know who drinking tang. Tang is old, y'all. Lord Tang Aid. All right. I know, like where did the tang? I don't even know where the image of tang came from. That's really old. Y'all bringing me back into some old days. Old days. Oh my goodness. Yes, she says I am a eat whatever I can with my hands sort of person. It's so much healthier for digestion because of the enzymes your gut will start producing upon contact. Oh, upon your fingers being in contact with the food, initiates a process. Good, good. Go on and get you some time, Sister Maya. Treat Do not treat yourself. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Tang-Aid. Okay, don't drink it. Yes, have them do an experiment, do it with plastic and see, like see what happens, right? I've seen people take, just regular bowls and they'll sit like a metal bowl and sit hot food in a metal bowl, but they'll cover it with plastic. And I say to myself, but there's condensation happening. So what's going to actually happen is the heat will begin to deteriorate the plastic, and you're going to have whatever chemicals, some of the chemicals, because some chemicals aren't affected by such low levels of heat, but some are, and it begins to leach and drop back into the food, because even though the heat may not do it, it may dissolve, some of it may dissolve into the plastic. Y'all ignoring me and all the warnings. Everybody having a hot, good time in the chat. Good for y'all. Let me see what's happening in the chat, because there's a whole, everybody having fits over here. Old, I have a lifetime supply that I want from Double Dare. Yes, they they don't make it anymore. Oh my goodness. What is Double Dare? Who did you win Double Dare with? Because I want to know. Double Dare. Oh my gosh. He said Double Dare, and for a second I thought Double Dutch, but no, that's not it. Sorry, y'all. um, Sister Kashia said, I think I recall commercials with a chimp advertising in law. Could be wrong. Oh my goodness. Now y'all gone. Totally, totally. She says heat mixed with plastic is carcinogenic. There's really nothing good that comes from plastic. There really isn't. And it's, the other thing is it's not biodegradable. It's not, it sits, like we have an issue with plastics right now, and not just big chunks of plastic that's visible. Microplastics are in the water, they're in the food, and we eat and we consume. Those who consume fish, those who consume animals from the sea, or animals for that matter, they're drinking water and they're interacting with water that's filled with microplastics. So they ingest them, it makes its way into their blood system, their body, their flesh, and then you eat that. I'm not saying we eat that because I don't need that, but you eat that. But the same is true for microplastics that end up in our water that are absorbed by the plants that we consume. So no matter where you are or where you're eating from, in terms of like the ecosystem and where you sit on the food chain, there's always some exposure that we have to think and consider. Always. uh I have to, yes, you, and it's very easy. I don't have any containers. Well, here we go. Spice jar. And this is funny because I just took my shot of supplement in water just before I got on, actually. And I just, I put the bottle right there so that I could wash it after I get off. And this is what I do. This is a spice jar. So yes, I buy the spices, and I can buy a big plastic jar if I like, but I choose to purchase in glass because now I can reuse it. I reuse it for shots. Somebody comes by and they want a shot or drink or something that they can take with them on the road, or you can go to work with these. You add your supplements, you add your liquid water, juice, whatever. You take your shot on the road with you, you're good, right? So hey, they come in really handy. Ends of your drink, maybe your kids have little kits and they want a little shot of juice, you could throw two of these with some juice in there. Of course they may want much more, but it's up to you. But glass jars, you don't have to purchase glass jars. You can actually pay attention to the items that you purchase, that you use, and as you do that, think about the fact that you can reuse the jar, and rather than recycling it, or rather than using plastic that you're going to recycle, purchase glass jars and reuse them for food, for whatever. um Chief says, same Chief. Oh, Sham the Joy says, I find I also eat slower when I eat with my hands. It makes me think of how we've been conditioned to think that refined eating is focused on cutlery setting. True, true. That food tastes sweet when you eat food with your hands. It's sweet. It's sweet, y'all. That's all I could say to you. It's real good. There's no, yeah, there's nothing that beats it. Try it, try it. Let's make Friday eat food with your fingers. Finger food Friday. Eat your lunch with your fingers. No, I will not come on camera and show you. What is double dare? What is double dare? I'll have you know it's the it's what? I missed that part. I missed that part. I think I deleted it by accident. The double dare part. I was reading the. Oh, there you go. I have you know it's only the greatest piece of television sportsmanship produced in the last 50 years. Now I gotta go figure out what this double dare is. And I might realize that I've probably heard of it or seen it. When you eat with your hands, you do eat slower and you're not just shoveling food into your mouth, right? Because the fork and spoon is like a shovel, like stick it, shovel, stick, shovel, right? It is like that. It's true. Um, Even tearing apart meat activates certain cognitive responses in the brain to invoke the hunter-gatherer process. I imagine so. That's really a deep point when you think about um, how we the use of knife and fork and spoon, cutlery reduces our ability to interact organically with the food that we're going to consume. And so, yeah, you're right. It reduces that connection. Those primal triggers are, like cut off. But I also think that, with doing that, our bodies, when we eat with our fingers and we engage organically with the food, I think our bodies also begin to identify what is good for us, right? There's a extra exposure to the food, and you could kind of say, nah, I don't need any of this right now. I don't need greens right now. I kind of just need these carbs. And I honestly think that our bodies interact with us on the daily in that way, but we miss the cues, right? We miss the cues because we're busy shoveling with a fork and spoon rather than engaging. While our eyes stare at a screen and our brains calculate something or try to comprehend something instead of paying attention to what we're eating. um those are the type of bottles Branson used to give out. Who all these people I don't know about. The symbology of food. Sister Naya says, Toda, for those tips, I have a bunch of kombucha bottles and pasta sauce jars, etc., that I used to toss until you mentioned how you recycle. I do now too. Yeah, recycle. They're really helpful. And I mean, again, pay attention to the jars, the lids sometimes have plastic. You want to, this lid does have plastic, so I make sure that I'm not putting anything where it's upside down or hot or anything like that. You can try. There is no real way to escape it completely. Um, there's no way to escape it completely. So I just wanted to share a little bit about plastics. I want to jump to make sure I did not miss anything. It's really mainly about how we adjust ourselves so that we can pull away and reduce exposure, not just for ourselves but our youth, right? Very important, very important. And I wanted to say some of the articles that I read when they tested some of the foods. 80% of the foods that were tested contained phthalates that led to issues with oh my gosh, what do you call it? Not autism. Oh my goodness, the word just like left my head because I'm thinking about the asthma. Right? Can you imagine? 80% of the plastic that they found, of the food they found, had plastics that actually induced asthma and asthmatic conditions in children. So, you know, for the years that I taught, and I engage with students who always had pumps before they make two skip across the hallway, or they run out recess before 2 minutes, they're pulling out a asthma pump to pump, right? Weakening the lungs, weakening the lungs. All you need is some B5 pentatonic acid. That's all you need. Get yourself in order, do some exercise, and your body wouldn't be giving out on you like that. And get rid of consuming all the Cheetos and the packaged goods, because those things are wrapped in plastic bags, literally plastic bags. Of course, 80%, she says, of course, 80% would have them. That makes so much sense. We are surrounded by plastic and rubber. So even though we can heal in 8 hours, we never give our systems a break. This is true. The very screen that I'm staring at may be made of plastic, but the entire frame of the phone, well, some parts of it, plastic. And the heat radiating off of that must be diffusing something in the air. There's a light sitting over me right now, plastic, right? So it is true. You know, we never really do give our systems a break until we take the long needed camping trip. So if you're down, let me know. That would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. That would be a good thing. I know some of us are due for a camping trip, you know, so you know, hey. But even then you still can't get away, because you know, it's not like we sleeping in crocheted hammocks or anything. So you know. Um Chief also says, right, Sister Kashia? Okay, I missed something. Sister Kashia says, I can keep us from overindulging as well, giving up. Oh, the eating with our hands. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Definitely can help with that. So yeah, those are the main points that I had today. And I'm gonna end on this other point too. I did a lot of food prep, you know, just vending and things like that, and catering, you know, for small, you know, smaller events. And we would use gloves. Um, I used to use the gloves a lot. Now I can't really get away from it. We can't really get away from it. It's hard because um, you gotta you have to work with people when it comes to food prep and so on. However, those gloves, even though they say to you these are made from latex, some are made from rubber and so on, there are portions of plastic in them, right? A matter of fact, all of the foods tested, mainly the foods that were tested were from fast food chains all across. Even those with pizza boxes that are made from cardboard, when you really look at the inside, there is a film of plastic that sits in there. So that hot pizza or that hot food sits on that plastic. Guess what? Phthalates in your backside. But yeah, so even the use of gloves, it may seem as if it's a barrier, but it's a barrier at a cost, right? And that cost is plasticizers, and even plasticizers again and phthalates are specifically chemicals added to plastics that are transferred, or the residue is transferred to the food, but they're added to make plastics pliable and soft. So that's a heads up too, because if you're working with plastics that are really soft, using them, that's a telltale sign. Telltale sign. Greetings, Kim. Peace. Thank you for joining us. Greetings, greetings. I just noticed you. She says, start the organizing, sisters. You two aren't even more than 6 hours from each other. I want to pick up tree trunks like you do. Girl, that was not a pick up a tree trunk. That was funny. Anyway, that's a story for another day, Naya. um Phones, clothes, yes. Plastic is everywhere. We can't run away from it. And to your point, Chief, about plastics in even our clothes, you know, we're charged to wear natural natural threads, right? Cotton, linen, and yes, not mixing. It's so convenient because I'll tell you right now, this that I'm wearing right here is not even, it's not pure. All right. And I too am moving away from really pulling on and using items that are really pure when it comes to clothing. Very important because it's on your skin, and your skin is the largest organ in the body. You know, we're taking in all of these other chemicals in small doses, right? No joke. Yes, indeed. Being in nature is definitely a huge reset, and we all need that opportunity for that reset. Yes, we do. It's like a little campaign that okay, let me stop. Start the organizing. Okay, I read that part, and I am going to close. Sister Naya, everybody's having yes, wool. That's correct, Sister Sham. The joy. Wool. Wool is also another um another natural fiber that we of fabric that we should all be wearing. Yep, yep, yep. She says, here's one. Even consider the plastic bottle cap used on that glass bottle of healthy drink. Of course. Of course. This is that's it. This here is it's plastic, you know, to a certain degree, we can't even get over it. You know, some jars have a metallic top, but even the gasket, right? There are gaskets and the little suction um, tape or the little suction packets or suction liners, or some of them are made from plastic. That's what, not rubber, but plastic. So yeah, this is true. There, that same healthy drink, plastic bottle top. True. It's ringing. Yep, you probably heard it through the grapevine or the Tangade. I don't know, one of the two. Maybe it was the grapevine, maybe it was the Tangade. I don't know which one. I loved our exchange today. Thank you all for jumping on to this conversation, a serving of industrial chemicals. Make sure to pay attention to what you are packaging, pouring your food drinks into. Make sure you're paying attention to how much plastics you're exposed to. Start shifting when it comes to using plastic wrap, even using things like plastic film covered, what do you call it? Paper wrappers and things like that. They all have plastic. Focus on shifting and getting rid of some of the plastic containers that you have, jars that have plastic tops where you pour hot things in to. You want to pay attention to those things and shift. You know, it may cost a little bit more, but the shifting actually helps to clean up your space, and it helps to reduce the amount of plastics you're exposed to. It helps to reduce the amount of plastics your youth are exposed to. That's the key. We old dogs and the game or whatever the song. I forgot how the song goes, but we're older, and though we need to pay attention to that, the youth, their brain function can be affected by overexposure to plastics. Very, like very critical. She says, let's see who brings plastic items to store their camping items. Ooh, well, there are a couple of bags with some portions of plastic in there. You can't get away from it. And yup, we planned for a camping trip, my first ever. You will be fine. You will be fine. You'll be super fine. You will be fine. You will be fine. Even if it's where you are too. I know you said there are no bears where you are, but I looked it up. Yeah, there are bear stories out there. Yeah, just to let you know as you prepare. As you prepare. Peace, you all. Wellness is yours. Hold on to it. Please like, share, subscribe, share this video with friends, family, blood family, anyone you know, random people walking down the street. Just say to them, here, educate yourself a little bit and join in on the conversation. Thank you all for being in the space. You all are always here. Peace, 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 and power to you all. Thank you, Chief Yuya, for bringing the space and bringing information and knowledge. Thank you, my precious, Shanta Joy, Kashia, Sister Naya, and Kim. I didn't forget you, Kim. Peace.